Today I am going to show you how to make this beautiful serving board. We are going to start today's build off with cutting a piece of wood to size. This particular piece of wood is plum tree, which I removed very professionally.
Kijk uit voor de
From my own backyard a couple of years ago. The wood is beautiful, a bit orange. I cut it down at the miter saw, making sure to cut it to the right size so it fits in the mold I'll be using later on. I remove the bark using a chisel. I make sure every bit of bark is removed, because it can get loose later while pouring the epoxy. Using my drill with a wire steel brush bit, I make sure all the loose material of the bark is removed. At the jointer, I make a flat surface on the bottom of the wood so it lays flat in the mold later on. This part is optional in my opinion when you are using translucent epoxy. Time to place the piece in the mold. I use a simple baking mold made of silicone which won't bond with the epoxy. I put a brick of lead on the wood so it won't float on the epoxy. Now it's time to mix the epoxy. When I put metallic powder in my epoxy, I almost always use 3 different colors of pigment. In this project I use 2 tones of green pigment which are just a shade different in color. And for the contrast I put in some white metallic pigment. This way your epoxy gets that awesome depth instead of those flat colors. I mix it up well for about 5 minutes. What is your favorite color of epoxy? Let me know in the comments below. I guessed the amount of epoxy to go in this project and I was almost spot on. Using a torch on the epoxy, I remove any bubbles that form and I make sure to check on it every once in a while to look if there are any bubbles coming to the surface, removing them with the torch. After 48 hours, it's time to remove the piece from the mold. As you can see, the silicone baking mold comes off super easy. I used to make melamine molds for these projects, but using baking molds saves me loads of time. And the best part is they are reusable. Are you liking this project so far? Help me out by liking the video and subscribe if you want to see more of these projects. At the miter saw, I removed the excess epoxy on the ends of the board. The baking mold was perfectly square so I can just place it against the fence making a square cut. Take your time making multiple slow passes to prevent blowout on the epoxy. The excess epoxy on the side is removed using my table saw and a miter gauge. Then it's over to the planer to get the piece to the desired thickness. I had to remove so much material. Next time I would cut this piece into 2 slices, so I can make 2 serving boards. On the other hand, the thickness of this piece makes it really stand out. At my drill press, I drill a finger hole in the corner using a Forstner bit. I put a piece of scrap plywood underneath the serving board to prevent blowout at the bottom of the piece. Clamp it down good. Again, make sure to take your time on this. You don't want your epoxy to get all gummy again, and mess up your project. Press down and release the sawdust. Press down again and so on. Using a round over bit in my palm router, I round over all the edges, including the finger hole. Now it's time for my least favorite part of any woodworking project, sanding. I start with 120 grit all the way up to 400 grit. If you don't use metallic pigment but use translucent epoxy, you should sand all the way up to 2000 grit minimum. Time for finishing. I use grapeseed oil. In my experience, this is one of the best finishing projects for serving boards, charcuterie boards and cutting boards. This product is super cheap. This bottle cost me about $4 for half a liter. And the best part is, you can cook in this stuff, so it's food safe. It's available everywhere, so next time you're going out for groceries, pick one of these bottles up as well. This is an easy project to make for yourself, and if you are in it for the money, they are easy to batch out. Sometimes I make 10 of them at the same time using the baking molds you saw before. Awesome.